have Maine red fish and a delicious herby based sauce on there. I'm going to sprinkle. And you could also do shredded Parmesan cheese, but I think this is going to be really, really delicious. And just a little to give a nice little cheese crust on there. They eat most of everything. Actually, the pickiest eater is the cameraman. Well, Evie, but sometimes that is naan, sometimes it's breadsticks or a challah or a yeast bread. But this guy is beautiful. I'm going to bring him over here. So this is our traditional loaf. Really simple. I guess it's made with just 3 ingredients: water, flour, and salt, because our starter is just made with flour and water. Nice, beautiful golden crust, which is like why I like to take it out of our Dutch oven. And then my not so beautiful scoring there, but beautiful popped up here. My family, which means when I have to cook up, I almost always have to cook my proteins in batches, which means some are going to have to sit longer than others. Always have your biggest ones sit the longest. They're not going to get overcooked. I'm going to drop these in, and then we're going to put our sourdough in when we come back. Well, you know, I'm just going to turn it down. We'll do that when we come back, and then we'll be ready. Bring it down just a snooze with our lid on. And now we're going to take the lid off, and we're going to bake it for 20 minutes at 450. I had to readjust the thing. Normally I put my lid on my old toaster, but this one's a bougie nice toaster and too scared to ruin it. But here is our beautiful sourdough. This is a traditional loaf. We're going to go back in. I'll slide that guy in here. We're going to bring the temperature down to 450. And then I'm going to set my timer for 20 minutes. So I was using my new toaster the other day, and I was so used to my old toaster where you manually lifted up the toast like from with a switch. This one, I kid you not, it has that like spring action, and it like popped it. And I was like, this is so good. I'm like, next time I'm gonna have to get like a plate and try to catch it underneath it. It was very, very cool. Okay, we've got that. I'm gonna turn off my butter because it's kind of infusing there. And let's get our fat little red fish going into our butter up here. So I'm getting my little fat ones. We're going to do presentation side first. So this kind of skin side is going to go on top. You always want to do the pretty side down first because that's going to give you the nicest fry up on it. Here. And I think, well, I'm just going to steal a little one to go in there because I can't fit a big fat one in. And that's okay. We'll let them kind of cook up on that side. Again, I've got the butter heating at around a 6, so it's going to get a good like little base for it. Let's get our oil heating up for our asparagus. We're going to toast up some olive oil or some garlic in here and let it kind of caramelize just a little bit. And then we'll add in our asparagus and we'll kind of do a little steam saute on it. We're just going to do a good little chunk here. And now let's check our potatoes. Now that I have my lid on it, they should be cooked much faster. I'm going to go find myself a big fat one, and we'll see if we are getting there. Not quite yet. You know what I'm going to do? Because this needs to cook faster than my asparagus. We're going to bring this guy on full high heat right here, and this guy can go up there because that will be fine. I should have did it from the beginning, but is the life. Whenever I need to boil noodles really, really fast, I'll use my little pot and I put them on there and it like super boils them. Okay, we've got our frying here up nicely. Fish cooks up really quickly, so you don't want to overcook it. It's going to need about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. I am going to rotate my pan here because, as I say, this side of my pan likes to heat a lot faster. Let's get our Gouda sliced up so that when we're ready for it, we can put it straight on our smashed potatoes once they're on there. So you could also do this with Parmesan cheese or other ones, but I feel like Gouda is going to give a little creamier melt to it and will be lovely. So I'm going to make a couple of good slices, and that way it will kind of crisp up nicely. I'll just stack them right here. And Gouda is like a semi-soft cheese, so it has a good melt, kind of like a mozzarella, but it's mozzarella all work well with it. Let's give my garlic a little bit of a swirl here. There we go. And I'm going to turn this back burner down nice and low to about a nice kind of medium temperature. And let's drop our asparagus in there so that it can start kind of cooking up. Once I put it in there, I'm going to toss each one in that oil so it coats it up with that lovely flavor. And at the very end, we'll sprinkle a little bit of garlic, salt, and pepper on them to season them up. But right now, we're just going to let them kind of cook here. But coat them up in that nice little garlic oil that we have. Here. Beautiful. So once they're coated, what we're going to do is we are going to put our lid on here, and that lid is going to trap in some moisture, and it's essentially going to steam up our asparagus, but without having to like drop them in a steam basket or water. It's funny, I do actually have an asparagus pot, but I like never use it for actual asparagus. Let's check on our fish here.
Do you have the sourdough recipe posted anywhere?
I do have the sourdough recipe posted. It's my traditional loaf. It's the big loaf card. I believe I made that one a free recipe card for everybody. So you'll just have to kind of go look for it. But I also have a tutorial on how to make your own starter and how to make your very own sourdough loaf using that recipe. So you can definitely check those out. Look how beautiful and flaky this is. We're going to flip it over. We're getting this nice little butter crust on it. Looking gorgeous. I'm interested to try this fish and see how it is. I want it to kind of hold up well. There we go. Beautiful. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little plate, and we can pop these on there and let them sit. And we will be tucking them in a nice little sauce that will keep them nice and hot when we kind of cook them up. Okay. Let's check on these potatoes now that I've got them on my super fast, supersonic speed. And these aren't going to need a whole lot of time in the oven because they are going to, they're just kind of melting that cheese and crisping them up. There we go. Perfect. See, just needed a little bit of love. I'm going to turn this guy off, and I'm going to move this guy down here.
Are there bones in the fish?
It's really going to depend on how well they filleted them when you pick them up. I have a feeling that there's going to be maybe like 1 or 2 little bones on it, just like you can get with any fish. It just depends on how good your filleter was. I'm going to slide this off just until it cools down a little bit, and then we'll pop it back on. I got to get my strainer here. Here we go. We're going to strain these. We'll put them out here. We'll smash them down, and then we're going to pour our butter over them. I'm actually going to use this to smash it down with. So you got your potatoes, kind of spread them out so that you have plenty of room to smash them so they're not just all being smashed up on top of each other. There we go. And then you're just going to take, you can use a second pan, but I just like to use this. And I'm just going to push them down just like that to make my smashed potato here. Beautiful. Ah. You could always put like a little piece of, parchment paper on there, but I always give everything a good scrub down. Now, before we have them here, this is our truffled garlic butter. But our fish is just about done. But let me put a little bit of garlic salt in here. And then we'll pour this over. But I'm going to switch off our fish here onto our plate. We'll let it finish kind of sitting there because we are going to, it's going to continue cooking after it, and I don't want it to get overcooked. And it's going to come back into a lovely sauce when we're done. And grab this here. Slide it all the way up on here. And this is our gorgeous Maine redfish on here that we seasoned with butter, garlic, salt, black pepper, oregano. And then we're going to make a lovely herby sauce that we're going to put it back in with it in just a second. Let's put our fish in here. Again, we're going to put it presentation side down so you get that nice, pretty little sear on it. Let's get these guys. I've got these 2 little ones. Beautiful. I'm going to go wash my hands. And then, before we do our smashed potatoes, I'm going to give these a quick toss. Look at that. Beautiful. They're getting nice and vibrant green, which means they're getting nice and tender. When they're more whitish and opaque, that means they're not, they're going to be more raw.
I have a question. Can you cook most fish the same way?
Yeah, for the most part, some fish have a little bit tougher texture, so they lend itself better to being fried, or whatnot. But you can definitely do a pan fry on it, and kind of cook it this way. I do a variety of different kind of cooking techniques. Sometimes I do fried or battered. It really just depends on the fish. I wanted to taste this fish more, in its essence, versus frying it like with a breading or a batter. And so this allows you to taste more of the fish instead of anything. We're going to pour our kind of truffled garlic butter over here. And those are our nice crispy pieces of garlic, which are going to add so much flavor to this meal. Like that, just garlic is going to be so amazing. Now, cooking these up, what we're doing is we are really waiting for the cheese to melt on top of it. So here is our, 1 second before I top that off on there, we're going to do a little bit of, I've got even truffle and black pepper and Parmesan. It's a little bit of a salt here. And just a slight little sprinkle underneath. And then we're going to do a little sprinkle on top of the cheeses. And you could also do shredded Parmesan cheese, but I think this is going to be really, really delicious. And just a little to give a nice little cheese crust on there. But it has that Parmesan oil in it as well, which will add a nice little bit of flavor. Let's go pop this in the oven. And we'll sit this underneath our sourdough bread. We can take a little peek. And this should be done cooking right around the time our sourdough is done, and we can take it out because we've got about 8 minutes left in here. The oven's at 450, which will give it a good high cook on this. And then we're going to flip our fish here, and we'll make our lovely sauce to kind of go on it and get ready there. Okay, these are looking pretty darn good. So I'm going to just take the lid off now. That will allow some of that extra moisture to steam off of the asparagus. And then let's finish with our fish here. So in our asparagus in here, we kind of sauteed up some garlic with oil. We added, we trimmed up our asparagus. We added in there, sauteed for a minute, and then we did kind of a steam cook on it. We're adding in our red fish here. We're going to flip this over. This is the main red fish, and we're going to flip it over and let it cook up here. And then we're going to use the drippings in that pan, which is made from the butter. The cameraman says it is delicious. So I'm glad to hear that. You never know when you're getting a thing.
You have a question? Are the kids picky eaters, or do they eat most of everything?
They eat most of everything. Actually, the pickiest eater is the cameraman. Evie. Evie is the pickiest eater, but she loves fish. So although at first she goes, "Oh, yay, salmon." I said, "No, it's not salmon tonight, but I'll call it white salmon or something like that for the little ones." But because I exposed them to food at a really young age, a wide variety of it, that's all they've ever known. They were never like a chicken nuggets or whatnot, menu. I make homemade chicken tenders and stuff like that. And I have things, but they've grown up with eating this food all the time. And that was one thing when I was first started out being, I was like, I'm not going to be a short order cook. I'm not going to make all separate meals for our kids and then for us. We're all going to eat the same thing, because that's how we had it growing up. We all eat the same meal. And, I think that's why, like, my family, we are all like really good eaters and we eat there's not very many picky people, in there. And it's just because we've exposed to lots of different things on there. My mom's from Sweden, so we had all of those flavors, but her family moved around a lot when she was a kid, because my grandfather, my muffa, was a nuclear physicist. So they came to America when she was 7, and then she moved to Germany, and then to England, and then back here. But she kind of went back here for, her grad school and everything, like for college, undergrad and graduate school. But the rest of her family stayed in Europe. So she was always over there visiting, and they moved around. They were in Italy, all over, Spain. And so it's kind of like always had like world cuisines, because, they would come visit. My grandfather, who is one of my biggest inspirations in cooking, was an amazing chef and a very technical chef, but he would make the most amazing dinners and was just such a great cook. I remember one year at Christmas, he made seafood bisque. And instead of just making a seafood bisque, he made a bunch of individual bisques and then mixed them together for it, because he wanted to make each bisque correctly based on the seafood when we had it. And we're all like, we would have just made a base and put it in there. But again, he was very much that kind of technical chef for it. Here is our main redfish that we've pan-seared off. We've got just a simple seasoning on it of oregano, garlic, salt, black pepper, and a little bit of that and lemon juice. Now we're going to add in our herbs and everything. We're going to start with our onions. We're going to let these saute in here nice and quick, get those flavors out in the meat dripping or the fish drippings to bring those flavors out for it.
You have a question? Would you ever open up a restaurant?
See, I don't think I would. I've been asked that several times by people. Would you open up a restaurant or do a food truck or something like that? And I think it would take the enjoyment out of cooking if I had to rush and kind of cook around for everyone out. I love cooking. I never get tired of cooking of it, but I think if I had to do it as a straight up like job and for that and just the pressures of it, because, having a restaurant isn't just going and cooking your meals. There's so much that goes behind the scenes, and it is a difficult job. And so it's one of those things where it's like, in a perfect world, you'd be like, yes, but I also know that there's so much commitment that can happen behind there and so many things that can, just can add chaos to it. We've got our onions here. I'm going to turn up just a little bit, and then we'll add in our garlic. I picked up some of the bigger chunks of the fish scraps in there because I don't want all of them, but I do want a little bit of that to add that nice flavor to this. We're going to add in our garlic, and then I have some chicken stock that I made the other day from our roasted chickens that we had. I kind of made a lovely stock by taking the carcasses from the 2 roast chickens, putting them back in that big Dutch oven, filling the pot up with water, onions, carrots, and celery, and salt and black pepper, and just letting it stew overnight. And we're going to use some of that in here to make our base of our sauce. I'm going to use just a little bit of that chicken fat, which is on top, the white stuff on top. The stock part is gelatinous because, again, that's when homemade stock is going to have that natural thing. The white stuff on top is like the pure fat part of it. We're going to use it just like you would like a beef towel or whatnot. It's going to add some great flavor into this thing, and then we'll use some of the more gelatinous parts. There we go. We've got our garlic in there. I'm kind of deglazing my pan as we go, scraping up those tasty little seasoned bits that are kind of coming along through it. And then we're going to add in our fresh herbs here, and we're just going to let them saute up. I'm going to add in half of each one so that they can bring in the flavors, but then I'm going to add in more at the very end to add fresh notes. So we're going to cook up half of them, and then we'll add in the half. And that is green onions, fresh basil, and fresh parsley. And give this a nice little bit. We're going to squeeze in some fresh lemon juice. Kind of get that nice little tangy flavor. And then we're going to add in our stock.
You have a question? Do you have a lot of cousins?
You know what? It's really crazy. I grew up and I did not have hardly any cousins. I didn't get a cousin until I was like 28. And my mom was the oldest, but none of her siblings really had kids until, later.
But you have 9 siblings.
But I have 9 siblings, but my children have lots of cousins, like so many cousins, like 30 or 40 cousins, like a ridiculous number of cousins. I grew up with, so I will say, let's grab our sourdough out of the oven. We grew up with one, we always called her our cousin, but she was actually my mom's cousin because my momo, she was an only child, and my muffa, this is like mother's mother, mother's father, was had a brother, and he didn't have children until later in life. So he had a daughter that was similar to my older sister's age, so a little bit, she was like 12 years older than us, so we always called her our cousin, but she lived in Sweden, across the world. We'll grab those potatoes out in just a second. Here, I'm going to pop this over here, and then I'll go back and grab them. So that was kind of ours, and my older sister was great friends with her and everything like that. And then I got a true cousin when I was older who's actually the same age as my daughter. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's not quite really my cousin, which is just kind of funny. But so I never had that kind of cousin relationship that my kids have now. Like when Thanksgiving happens, there's so many kids and it's crazy. We actually, for this Thanksgiving at my parents' house, we built them a bunk room, and essentially where we built in a bunch of bunk beds. So it now sleeps 13 people, and that is where the majority of the cousins were staying, all of the kids in there, and it was a whole bunch of chaos. Okay, let's let that simmer for a second, and then we'll finish up and we'll get ready to serve.
Do you make sourdough every day?
Not every day, but fairly often. I will say I probably make around 4 or 5 loaves a week. I do make a grain of some sort every day as our kind of our little grain, but sometimes that is naan, sometimes it's breadsticks or a challah or a yeast bread. But this guy is beautiful. I'm going to bring him over here. I think the cameraman is motioning that do you want one minus the herbs? He does. I think the cameraman is motioning that do you want one minus the herbs? He does. I told you, you put greens by him, he is not. I always try to make him. All of my kids, they're all for the sauces.
I already sampled this. It's delicious. So it's a standby.
Standby. He'll let me put a little scoop on it. And then guess what happens every time I do? He's like, oh, I really like that. And it was like the first time I made herby butter. And he was like, oh, I don't want it. And then he was like, oh, I do want it. Give me some more. I'm going to take my fresh herbs. We're going to sprinkle them around on the top here. It's like herbe. I'm going to add a nice little bit of fresh herb flavor to it, which will be nice and poppin' with our red fish. I'm going to turn that guy off. And I have his plate over here. Let's get ready to serve up dinner. And I'll slide this one over here. It's very pretty. It means we're going to have good grilled cheese tomorrow. I'll have to think of what soup I'm going to make with lunch. And let's get ready to serve up. Is this not almost? I was hoping it was cool enough, but not quite. Okay. For dinner today, we have our Gouda and truffle smashed potatoes that we made with truffle oil, a butter and fresh garlic, and then we sliced Gouda and put it over there and roasted it in the oven after we smashed our potatoes down on their baby Dutch potatoes. We're going to serve that with some asparagus as a touch of green that we cooked with fresh garlic and a little bit of olive oil. And then for our fish today, we have Maine red fish and a delicious herby based sauce on there. I'm going to sprinkle garlic, a little bit of lemon juice in there, and our homemade chicken sauce that adds a touch of great flavor. And then, of course, for our little grain, we have our homemade sourdough bread. That's our traditional loaf. It's a big one, but it will be delicious. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. We've got our Maine redfish with our truffled Gouda smashed potatoes and asparagus and sourdough bread, and you can always watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront with all of our cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my Hexclad pans, my knives, cutting boards, bakeware, all the different things that I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and